Welcome to another episode of the Angels Positivity and Love Show. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights, experiences to share with us, and much more. I would say they're also here to share love and their high vibe. They've been at what they're doing usually for quite some time. Today's no exception. Dan Brulé is coming to us not from his usual Florida or his future India trip. By the time you see this, it'll be a past India trip. He loves going around the world. He's been doing breath work and much more prana yoga for 45 plus years. Incredible background. Dan, welcome from Moscow or the Moscow area in Russia. Wow, you're our first
Thank you.
taping from there.
Wow, great to be with you. Amazing what technology can do these days, bringing together people from across the world at the speed of light. I think these are our ancestors dreamed about stuff. We're living in the dreams of our ancestors.
Well, I should mention your book, Just Breathe from 2018, Simon and Schuster. I believe Tony Robbins has been or is a client of yours, but he was kind enough to do the foreword to that book. People can check that out for sure. The details will be below this video. If you don't mind taking just a little bit of time to explain how you got into this in the first place around 1976. I think you were U.S. Navy. You've had three different big educational experiences. But around that time, what clicked? What happened? You were a diver, if I recall. We're talking breathing was a big part of your routine one way. How did it become something bigger?
Well, I mean, it was huge from kindergarten, being a Catholic little boy in kindergarten and listening to the priest tell us how God took dust of the earth, formed the body of man, and breathed into the nostrils of man the breath of life. That lit something up in me. I have vague memories of the priest trying to push my shoulders and get me in my chair, and the nun tapping me on my head, trying to calm me down. I guess I got too animated, but I couldn't understand why everybody wasn't excited. The thought that God is breathing into us when we breathe, like what? And my first job was an X-ray technician. I was literally taking X-rays of people's lungs. I was telling them to take in a deep breath and hold it. I clicked their picture, and I gave a couple of thousand people those same instructions: take in a deep breath, hold it, and then I take their X-ray. And as I watched them very carefully, it seemed that everyone did something different. The muscles they used, what they went through to accomplish a full breath, what they even thought was a full breath. And it was as if the breath was just started speaking to me. And then I learned CPR. And within 2 weeks of taking this weekend course in cardiopulmonary resuscitation, I was with my mobile X-ray machine up in the intensive care ward. And the guy I went to take an X-ray of died when I was there. Walked into the room, and his monitor went from the beep, beep to the beep. And my training kicked in. I blew into him a couple of times. I pumped on his chest. I breathed into him again, and he blinked and woke up. I mean, talk about a miracle. I mean, who wouldn't want to do this every day of their life, come upon somebody who's clinically dead and share breath with them and they become alive. Oh my God. And when you love what you do, the universe keeps giving you opportunities to do it. I'd be in a restaurant, somebody chokes on food. I'm on an airplane, somebody has a heart attack. I'm at the beach and somebody drowns. It was like people were dropping like flies around me so I could do what I love to do. And then I was a deep sea diver in the military. I actually drowned and I was resuscitated. And those first few breaths were just ecstatic. I could say I discovered the ecstatic nature of the breath. I wasn't breathing molecules of air. It seemed like I was breathing bubbles of light, and they were bursting everywhere inside of me. And I was suddenly in love with life for the first time. And the clouds were so white, and the sky was so blue, and everything had a shimmering light around it. And my heart, just took over my whole being. And I wanted everybody to experience this, and but didn't know how until after I got out of the military. And I mean, in the military, I was using my breath to manage my emotions, to manage my arousal, to when the poop hits the fan, what do? You don't reach for your weapon. You don't reach for your radio. You can't call your mother. And so you get a handle on your breath. And as soon as you get a handle on your breath, you have a handle on your physiology, your chemistry, your focus, everything comes into order really naturally after that. And it discovered something. It's a truism in the special forces world that when you think you have no energy left in your battery, you actually have 40% juice. You just haven't learned how to tap it. And most people don't learn how to tap that until they're forced to. You push them to the edge when they don't think they can go any further, and somehow they break through and they find energy they didn't have, and inspiration that they didn't have, and focus that they didn't have. And so I experienced that enough, and then I became somebody who was pushing people to their limits so they could discover that. And then when I got out of the military, I needed a gentler sort of way to work with people. Not everybody is being trained for life and death, high stakes situations. And I discovered rebirthing breathwork, developed by Leonard Orr. My university professor, my mentor, introduced me to it. And I had my first breathing session in the basement of his home. And 5 years of PTSD and traumatic brain injury and stress left over from the military, it just seemed to slide off me like skin off a snake. And I was pure and I was raw and I was sensitive, and my antenna were suddenly like alive. I didn't realize I was living in a cloud or with this dense blockages in my system and around me. And so the breath is like spiritual purification. It just cleared all the crap that was trapped in my nervous system and the trauma that was stored in my body. And that's why they called it rebirthing. I got in my first session, this is why they call this rebirthing. It feels like you're born into a whole new body. And so I've been doing this work ever since. And now I hit 75 countries just last week, because I was in Costa Rica, which brought me to 75 countries in the last 40, 50 years or whatever that I've been practicing. And I've had my hands on probably 300,000 people. And I'm a missionary for the breath, and I have no choice about it. And I'm a student of the breath, and it keeps unpacking, it keeps unraveling. There's always more layers, there's always higher possibilities. And so I'm in for the whole deal.
Well, let's talk about a sushi restaurant. If you walked into one, of course they're going to hand you a menu, and it's going to have a lot of different types of choices. You've gone through quite a sushi menu in those 40 to 50 years in terms of outside influences, any different modalities. It could be indigenous cultures, it could be India. Can you just briefly touch upon at least five, the mackerel, the tuna, the this, the that, the sea urchin, and give us just a taste of how did India captivate you, or how did you interact with it? Was a Satori Samadhi moment where you just brushing your teeth, the bubbles in the sink?
Well, in the West, we don't have sort of an enlightenment tradition. There was no real ancient science of breath. You have to go to India and China to learn that stuff. So that's why I was in India. I went to what I felt was the source of this spiritual breathing practice that I had stumbled into. And there's something sparkling in the eyes of those people in India. They may be poor on the street, but there's a light in their eyes. And they have a real reverence for traditions and for things in the West that's kind of, our Western mind isn't so contemplative, and it's sort of narrow and focused and male. And this contemplative, open, available sort of state doesn't come naturally to Westerners. And so India teaches us surrender. And because no matter what your plan is, India always have her own plan. And I met living masters, and I had abilities transmitted. Things are contagious. You take on the knowledge and the skills of the saints that you associate with and hang out with, and and embrace and bow to. And so if there was ever anyone who knew anything about breathing, taught anything about breathing, I was either kissing their feet or breathing down their neck until, like a bee, I would suck all the pollen I could out of it and fly to the next flower. And until pretty soon I had bees surrounding me and I realized, oh my God, I'm a flower and people are looking for nectar. And the breath to me, it helps, it allows people to connect to their spirit. I'm like a midwife helping people use their breath to awaken to their who they are and their maximum potential. And so India has examples of that, the possible human with abilities and outrageous, extraordinary abilities and these high states. And that's the synopsis basically of my book, that all those high states and the extraordinary abilities that we normally associate with the great saints and the gurus and the masters and the mystics and the warriors, those same high states and those same extraordinary abilities are accessible to everyone with a belly button. With a mind, a body, and a spirit, we can all attain, we can all achieve. And it's and if it's as simple as the breath, there it is. Yeah, just breathe. That the subtitle should have been "Why I'm Not a Therapist," because people come to me with their stories. I just want to slap them and shake them and say, "Look, just breathe, okay?" And but miracles happen, and it shouldn't be a surprise. The root of the word inspiration, expiration, respiration is spirit. Duh. And so it just takes. I have a formula for transformation. It came from my visits to China, to India, to these sacred places and studying with these masters. And I like to use the analogy of a menu because, a Chinese menu usually has 3 columns. You pick your protein, your fish or beef or pork, or whatever, and then you pick your spices and your sauce, and then you pick a side vegetable, and so you can pick from column one from column 2, and you put together a unique meal. Well, Chinese medical breathing exercises, which is Qigong, it's like Chinese yoga. And so you pick a posture, you pick a method of quieting your mind, and then you pick a breathing technique. And so you can pick different postures, healing postures, different breathing techniques, breathing exercises, and different ways of focusing or quieting the mind. And so that's my formula for transformation. I found that every healing event, every leap in growth, you could find that there was a change in consciousness. Somebody woke up to something they weren't awake to, or someone finally surrendered and let go in a way or to a level they never had before. And this energy that comes through the breath means that we don't have to do the work. We plug into that spiritual energy, that life force, the prana, the chi, the ki, and that energy does the healing, does the awakening, does the purifying. And so wake up, wake up to who you are, to what's possible, to the love that fills you and the love that surrounds you. Let go, relax, let go, and take charge. Breathe in a way to generate energy or connect to the same energy that's in the stars, it's in the rocks, it's in me, it's in the trees. Through the breath, we connect to this one energy. And then who needs a middleman after that?
I love it. And maybe we'll get a chance to see or play with a little bit of energy in a little bit, but I still have another question for you. It's kind of a micro question. Is there a personal moment you can share? Like you mentioned waking up, but this is waking up in dream time where it's a very vivid experience, or your eyes are open and you're sitting, you were in the middle of a meditation, you truly had one of those special moments. Can you get into the flavor of it and share what happened? It could be sitting with an angel all of a sudden, or a stranger with sparkly eyes. You turn, they're gone, but you got a great bit of encouragement. What was it that you could share with us?
Um, there were several near misses or partial eruptions of opening, and then the full sort of experience happened in India, where my teacher Babaji Harikan Baba, he's spoken about in Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And he was in the flesh from 1970 to 1984. He materialized in a cave in the foot of Mount Kailash, and I was drawn to him. And at one point, he tapped me on the stomach with the back of his hand, and he sent me into the city. He said, I want you to rebirth Mr. Pant, and I want you to rebirth a doctor. And, you know, when God tells you to do something, you don't even question, you just start running. And I was halfway through the jungle, and I realized, Mr. Pant, who is that? And breathe with the doctor. What am I supposed to knock on the door of a hospital? Maybe I should have gotten a little more information before I took off, but it was too late. And as I come into the town, I went to this hotel where Babaji devotees would stay on the way to the ashram. And Mott Paul, who owned the hotel, was sitting out on the front porch talking to someone. As I approached, he said, oh, Mr. Dan, I'd like you to meet Dr. Singh. Okay, I met a doctor in the first minute I was in town. And he says, oh, good. You know, what do you do? I said, well, I teach us breathing things. Well, can you teach it to me? So, well, there you have it. There, I gave him a session. And then after the session was over, my friend Vinay Shukla had showed up on his motorcycle. And I said, hey, Vinay, who's this Mr. Pant? He said, oh, everybody knows Mr. Pant. He was one of Babaji's original devotees. He's a retired newspaper editor. I'll take you to his house. Okay. So on the back of his Norton motorcycle, Indian motorcycle, we buzz through the busy streets. We get outside the town. He parks his bike under a tree, and I go up to the door, and this beautiful man, the beautiful Indian skin and those bright eyes, and can I help you? I said, yeah, Babaji asked me to. And he goes, oh, what does Babaji want? And he pulled me into the room. I could have said anything. I could have said, well, he wants you to give me all your money. And he would have. There was this moment of, oh my God. And I said, well, I teach this breathing thing. So, well, what do you do? I said, well, you know, we find a place to lay down. And he's already on the floor. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe you have a bed, a futon, a yoga mat, something. So he says, well, we can use my room. So I take him into his room. He takes me into his room. And we have this rebirthing breath, conscious, connected circular breathing, active inhale, passive exhale, no pauses or gaps. I got him into this breathing pattern, and he was doing it perfectly. And I couldn't even coach him. I couldn't correct him. I had no work to do. I'm kind of getting bored, and I'm looking around. I check, yeah, he's doing it perfectly, doesn't need me. And then all of a sudden, something started to happen, and it was frightening in a way, because something was happening to my reality and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And it was getting really frightening. Something inside, outside, I couldn't quite get what was happening, but it was huge. And then I looked under the bed and I noticed there was no shadow. The light was coming in through the window, and the light on top of the bed, there was just as much light under the bed. There should have been a shadow there. There was no shadow. And then when I looked over to the plant on the windowsill, in between the leaves, there was just as much light under the leaves as on top of the leaves. And then as I started to look at the air, it seemed like light was coming out of the air somehow. And it was so bright, I closed my eyes, but it was even brighter when I closed my eyes. And so I was trapped in this light. And then I didn't know what happened. I started weeping, and I had this huge cathartic release, and the borders of my body disappeared. And every single person I loved came to my mind. And I was physically holding my wife in my arms. And then I was holding my infant son in my arms, and then my brother, and then my sister. And then it's like every single person that I had a love connection to, I felt them physically in my arms. And when I opened my eyes, I was at the feet of Mr. Pant, and I was making love to his feet. I was kissing his feet. And I thought, what has happened to me? I'm not a feet kisser. What's going on? And when I looked at him, light was coming out of his eyes, out of his heart, out of his fingertips, out of the pores of his skin. And I turned into a bliss ninny. And I've never quite recovered. And I find that the breath is a way for us to gently open to this light, open to the light in us. I was a follower of Sai Baba for a while, and he wrote me a letter. I was one of the few people he wrote a personal letter to. I laid out all my life history and my fears and my problems, my sins and my questions, and I don't know, like a 6-page letter, mailed it off to Sai Baba. And I got a simple letter back. He said it was addressed to love. He said, first you're in the light, then the light is in you, and then you and the light are one. And it was signed love. And I had that letter on the wall of my growth center for 20 years till it burned down. But that made everything so clear. It just brought everything together. That's how it works. First, you're in the light, maybe the inspiration of a teacher, maybe in a community, maybe in a sacred place. And then the light is in you. And then you realize that you are the light, that the light and you are one. And that's the path to self-realization, I think.
Brilliant, literally. What I'll do
Yeah.
with your permission, we did this before the show, but I'll light some sage, blow some sage to Russia, and I've never gotten to do that twice in one day. Folks at home, just give yourself a break. I'll tell a dad joke that you have not heard. If you're laughing, you're letting go, you're breathing, as Dan would say. Here's a Bic lighter, red-tailed hawk feather, if I said it in English, and then lighting this, there'll be smoke. But here's the dad joke, more importantly. Santa's reindeer, Blitzen and Dancer, just those two. Why do they drink so much coffee? Blitzen and Dancer. Because they're Santa's Starbucks. And ouch, I
Okay.
burned myself a little. Okay, here's the sage. Catch a little sage, but if you want to go wild, ask for flowers. And if you want to go truly wild, Dan, get some flowers from India or something else from India. That incense you're about to get in
Hmm.
August, I think, of 2025, although this is airing later in the fall, for your upcoming but past, by the time you see this, India retreat, because you love taking people places.
Well, when I think of sage, and now that I can see it, I can smell it. It wakes up in my senses.
Yay. And then anything extra from India, you got a really big crew of unconditional love figures around you. They might
Mm.
give you something a little extra. I'll still tell one more dad joke. What's the only flower found on the human face? Tulips. Somebody said iris once, so there's technically a backdoor in.
There you go.
Did you get anything extra?
Well, my dog ate some Scrabble tiles. I took him to the vet, but there's no word yet.
I like that one. Never heard that one. And last interactive anything, with your permission, I'll use this as a background. I'll put my hands up. You'll see a little bit of light, maybe, should, between my fingers. But if you do, say the colors you see, and then it's just your heart seeing without seeing the Zen thing, because you're the equivalent of a professional Zen master, breath master, the rest, or just a beautiful non-guru guru. How about that? But I'm going to show a little bit of light, and the second you do get it, allow the universe to come in and do something extra. And of course, one more dad joke. Where in a hospital? Where in a hospital is the worst place to play hide and seek? In the ICU. Okay. And if you see a little filament of light, do you mind sharing that out loud? What do you see?
Hmm. Huh. Yellowish green?
Okay, I'm gonna
Hmm.
go a little bigger. If you don't mind allowing India figures to come in, your crew, angels, whoever, you might get a little extra. If not, it's okay too, but you might just get like a shape, more flow, more fun. And last dad joke of the day, I promise, but Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, Bert offers Ernie ice cream. What's Ernie say? He says, "Sherbert."
Sure, Bert.
Okay, what else
I
are you
just got a
getting into?
beautiful vision of one of my teachers, Bhut Puri, a really golden being in Malki.
Aw.
Well, thank you for that. He just flashed really clearly to me.
Ooh, well, if I had to put up one photo for you, but I wouldn't have Babaji necessarily. If I said to you, Ganesh,
I
uh,
love him.
Ananda Mayama, or Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, the original one from 100 plus years ago. Is there a favorite of the three?
Well, I like Ganesh. I like what he stands for. I like the vibe of the devotees around him.
Okay, and so I'll put up a Ganesh illustration. And if you want to catch anything extra or have something jump to the front of the mind that you can share with us, take us the next step and we'll start to wrap it up after that. What are you getting, feeling, seeing? And if you want to catch incense from an India temple, catch it in the air now, even though you're in Russia.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, the realization, the acknowledgement that every breath is a blessing. It's a freaking miracle that we can feel anything, that we can breathe, that we are here is a miracle. And, every breath can be a prayer. We just need to make it conscious. Every breath is a prayer. And I'll tell you, if you make every breath a prayer and you experience every breath as a blessing, it's really hard to suffer, impossible even. So,
In a little bit, we'll wrap up the show, and I'm going to give a hint as to how we'll exit, but we'll get you talking for another 5 minutes or so because we're cognizant of your time constraints. Um, in a little bit, if you could share a mantra but repeat it 3 times to give the audience a fair chance to feel your vibe. And speaking of which, very last interactive thing here, with your permission, only love and above, from Texas to Russia. I'll put my palm up if you want to feel the energy with all of you, or you can put your hands up at home. People, if you need help, set your intent like Dan was just mentioning. Ask the universe, angels, whoever, unconditional love figures, love and above, to help you feel with all of you. And Dan, what are you feeling for the vibe right now or energy? Is it warmth, sparkle, tickle, wind? And I'll blow a little through my microphone today. It's above the laptop. Here comes a little blowing. Treat it as aloha Hawaii, love and above. Here it comes. And I meant to ask about Hawaii later. That might be our next topic. Here comes a little more aloha. One last blow. If folks want to catch a little sea spritz on the nose, catch sea spritz on the nose. Dan, what can you share? Keep whatever's supposed to be private, private, but what can you share out loud?
it's no accident that the lungs are wrapped around the heart. It's impossible to breathe without opening your heart. And we need to make that journey from our head to our heart if we're going to create any peace in this world. I love how you say love and above. That the heart chakra is our new root chakra. And that's where we have to, that has to be our lowest default chakra. We fall back into our heart chakra and we're still way ahead of the game. And I think the way up is to begin to use the breath to receive information, to send information, to start to be conscious of using your breath to take in the energy behind someone's words, take in the energy of whatever you see or are listening to. Develop your breath like another sense, because it is. We literally have a brain in our heart, and we want to awaken our heart intelligence. And the breath helps us to really awaken the heart and heart intelligence, and it keeps us focused on our heart. It keeps us centered in our heart. And if we're there, violence is impossible, suffering is impossible, greed is impossible. So many things just disappear if we just learn to be in our heart and come from our heart.
Mhm. I love it. And you're reminding people to flow. And if they flow, they're a flower or a flower. Okay, you left me tingly. Did you feel, I didn't ask or have you say out loud, did you feel some energy? Could you put some words to it? And maybe the blowing, anything like that? It doesn't have to be a lot, but just a little couple of words. What did you get?
It's a warmth, definitely in my heart space. It's a very slight tingling in the palms of my hands. And everything that reminds me of love suddenly starts to come into my awareness.
Aw, and I didn't do it. Blame angels, don't blame Canada. Hey, I'm going to read one of my favorite gentlest phrases, sentences about compassion, kindness from angels. And then I'd love to get a reaction. And then I'd love after that for you to repeat a mantra 3 times for us so people can pick up on it. And then we'll wrap it up. But here's the hopefully the gentlest thing that could ever be said or suggested to other human beings from angels directly, if anyone can allow for that. Sometimes the person next to you or a stranger just needs validation via love and compassion. A smile changes any moment. So too does laughter or a few kind words. Be compassionate to all. Do it. And I might add, because we have Dan Brulé here, who's amazing, a breath can change every moment too. Let's be honoring what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. Take in what is being given. Use your breath to learn to take in what's behind the words, the energy behind what's being offered. And the breath takes it right to our heart. Start to practice. If something is worth looking at, it's worth breathing in. If something's worth listening to, it's worth taking it in with your breath. If something is worth reaching out to, it's worth reaching out with your breath and embracing it.
What mantra do you have for us, long or short, but you'll have to repeat it 3 times, that you would love to leave us with as a super high vibe, patented Dan Brulé thing?
Om Namaha Shivaya. Om Namaha Shivaya. Om Namaha Shivaya. Om Namaha Shivaya.
Dan Brulé, excellent having you on, meeting you for the first time. So much fun. May you have the most fun, shiniest path ahead. And again, thank you for being a guest on Angels Positivity and Love.
Love it. Thank you for what you're doing. God, the world needs more of this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.